What's up, guys? It is Sam here. Do you remember in school talking about the Industrial Revolution and how incredibly powerful of an impact the Industrial Revolution had on the United States? But also, as a byproduct, the Industrial Revolution impacted the entire planet. Well, if you remember this, right, the ability to create these giant systems that were able to produce things, right? Well, we're going through a fourth industrial revolution. It's called AI, artificial intelligence. And the impact that AI is going to have on the planet, just like there's plenty of textbooks and or other data out there that shows, oh my God, the Industrial Revolution impacted the planet in such a great magnitude. Now, think about that times 10 and the impact AI is going to have. We have companies out there that are already big into AI, like Google, like Facebook, like OpenAI, which just released ChatGPT. And there's going to be a lot more companies out there that are 100% AI, that are all based upon AI, right? Well, what do you think happens when you have a centralized entity that creates the AI and releases it to the marketplace? I believe OpenAI just did something where they're going to be charging a monthly fee to use the premium set of ChatGPT. So what does that mean? Well, that means that all the value that is created is going to accrue. That just means it's going to aggregate. Those are two big words that you might not know what they mean. It just means it's going to flow to one side, right? One person is going to collect all of that. One entity is going to collect all that, right? Well, that's powerful. It's impactful for the world. They're doing something in providing value to the marketplace, right? You can provide value in terms of a product and or a service, right? So they're providing the service, right? ChatGPT and the underlying AI behind it to the world, right? So how value is exchanged is when I do something of value for somebody else, they part with their dollar bills in exchange for that, right? If you look at your own life, people don't just take dollar bills and put it down the toilet, right? Because that's not valuable. So how does value exchange? Well, people will take their dollar bills and be like, okay, cool. This mason jar is 64 cents. 64 cents. To me, this mason jar is worth $3. I will pay 64 cents for this mason jar because to me, the value is greater than the cost. So when you understand that, value accrues to where it's coming from. Now, let's put all this together and get into the intro of this, because this may even be a two-part show because it is that important. AI, fourth industrial revolution, impacting the planet like nobody's ever going to realize what's happening. Currently, AI is being developed by centralized entities. Right? There's problems, there's issues in this, right? You are in Singapore and you're working on AI as a team, right? You're working on a team over there that is segregated, that is separate from me and my team here in the United States that's working in AI. Say I'm in Florida, and then people in California or New York or other parts around the world or the United States are all working on AI simultaneously, the same type of problems. And yet we're not working together, right? Somebody might publish white papers, right? And other ones don't necessarily publish those because they want to hold on to that, right? But what happens in the world? What happens in your own life when you collaborate with other smart, intelligent, and resourceful people? The vision expands. The speed of progress accelerates, right? If I am trying to achieve some type of goal, right? Let's just take something that is related to physical, Let's say that I want to run a marathon, right? Okay, how do I train for a marathon? No fucking idea. I don't run, right? So I start running, right? That's probably the simplest way to do this, right? But what if I collaborated with a coach? And then like a coach that's related to the gait mechanics, like how you actually run, right? And then another like PT, physical therapy, optimization, stretching type of coach, right? Do you think I'm going to achieve my goal of a marathon in a better time with less injury if I collaborate with these coaches? For fucking sure. And yes, obviously this is relating back to me, but this works on anything. Now, what if an AI was powered by the blockchain? What is it? Bitcoin has the largest compute power out of like more than Google does, right? More than Facebook does. This is Bitcoin. What if you put that power that people believe is inefficient now, right? Because with Bitcoin, everybody's trying to solve the same problem. And then once that problem's solved, all that extra energy that was put in that direction just goes away. And then they go on to the next problem, right? Well, what if all that power of proof of work, instead of putting to solve a cryptographic problem, was utilized to create a collaborative AI network around the world? This very interesting project called Bittensor is a network that is doing that has started in 2015. I'm just learning about it and I want to share it with you guys. So with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's Gucci? My name is Sam. If you're returning, it is good to freaking see you. You can check out the links down below if you like to support. Jump over to Twitter, say it was good, share this out over there, and we will get into this. We're going to be hearing from Matt, who is somebody actually on the team over at Bittensor, TAO token, and learn more how this AI network goes. So imagine earning, and as you earn this through proof of work, you're actually creating a more powerful AI, and you get the benefits of this. So we'll be back in 1 minute, 8 seconds.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking no blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hex and I'm making a steak. Got me some heads on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. Jim Reddit sent me to show you the way. Crypto in the morning. 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 Crypto in the morning.
What's Gucci? So let's say hi to everybody real quick. Stream Elements, good morning. Jaden, hello. Like biceps, guys. I got a workout in this morning. Boom, did some back. Hope everybody's creating an amazing week. Hexkin Contractor, what's up? PNW, how you doing? Christian, great to see you again. Hex Siren, hey, I haven't seen you in the house in a while. I saw you on Twitter the other day. Hope your workouts are going well. Derek, how are you? J Bay, what's Gucci? Willie, hello. Got some biceps here. We got some more biceps here. Where is GRC? He will be back in. He'll be back in a short amount of time. Hit some likes. Yes, I agree. Top of the crypto morning. Okay, so and Zen Bluencer, like the logo, bro. Okay, so one of the things that I've been paying attention to and utilizing practically on a daily basis, and I have people on my team who are actually utilizing this, is AI. Because all AI is a tool that you can utilize to achieve practically anything you want to do, right? It just depends on how creative or resourceful you are at that. You can use AI to help in many different ways, just like Google is effectively an AI, right, for search. You use Google to find information about how to pour cement. Well, at the same time, you can use Google to find the intricacies of how to understand brain chemistry, right? So a tool can be utilized however the individual chooses to utilize that. And when I learned about this Bittensor, a shout out to Russ, who actually shared this with me over on Facebook, super interesting. And I think that having a network that grows, that is not owned by a centralized entity, and it collaborates around the world. So you can't have one, right? OpenAI, that's in the United States. That means the US government can have a greater influence over that in development and or control or how it is utilized, right? Well, imagine not having any government involved in that process like Bitcoin, but instead of a cryptocurrency, it is creating the AI of the future. So all that cash flow, all that money, all that value doesn't accrue to one entity, right? Microsoft bought a lot of OpenAI. Microsoft is a $1 trillion plus company, right? Do we want, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but wouldn't, instead of all of that value that OpenAI is going to create flowing back to Microsoft, what if there was a way to participate in a network where when you learn something, my mining also gets better because I'm able to learn from you. And then everybody else is able to learn through that process in the network, and we can grow at a much faster rate. So we have somebody from, there's actually a video from Matt Hamilton, like a keynote, and he is on the team of Bittensor, and we're going to get into that video. So let's, without further ado, let's get into it. Jay, what do you think about some of these AI blockchains? This is the first one I'm personally checking out. There might be other ones out there, but there was one that I looked at, an AI blockchain tool using chat or like GPT-3. Wasn't really up my, it didn't seem to be anything spectacular in my mind. It might be very interesting, but it was more so based on like traders and stuff, and that's not what I'm doing. AI is going to be the next bull. I completely agree. Cambra, these are some of the other tokens, I guess, that are utilizing this potentially. I agree. I got to figure out how to do that in a more consistent fashion. I was thinking potentially a podcast of some sort, which might be kind of interesting. But let's get into this thing. Okay.
Blockchain.
This is Matt.
But first of all, let's set the scene of where we currently are with AI and some aspects of blockchain. So right now, we're all here participating in a social activity to achieve a goal. We're all here to better understand Web3 and the related topics and technologies around it. So not just from the speakers this evening, but also from the other participants, the talks we had whilst we were eating our wraps just now, and whilst we've been chatting before and after the talks. We registered on Meetup. We've got people here in person. We've got people on the live stream remotely as well. And fundamentally, intelligence emerges from cooperation, communication, collaboration, right? So by doing this social activity, by getting together, by talking about this topic together, collaboratively, we can increase our understanding much faster than if we were doing it on our own, solo. So we could sit and read books and...
That's exactly what I was saying. If you and I both work together at a goal or objective or vision, we'll just achieve it much faster. And I'm like, I don't know, this seems very interesting because blockchain is like, not blockchain. Well, blockchain is growing exponentially, but AI is growing exponentially as well. So how does something play out when you have like a double exponential, right? Exponential is kind of like going out very, very slowly like this. And then it gets this like parabolic type growth, right? And you're like, okay, cool, exponential is exponential. But what if you had a double exponential? You have blockchain growing exponentially, but then you have AI that is also growing exponentially on top of blockchain. I mean, like, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I know AI is going to be a giant thing in the future, massive thing in the future. And I know Bitcoin is going to be massive in the future. Putting those together, how that's going to collaborate, how that's going to grow things faster, I don't know. But I do think this is fascinating, and I will be in the forefront of this kind of stuff.
Watch YouTube videos. You know, we will continue to do that. And there's people watching, you know, this live on YouTube at the moment. So, you know, that's all good, and we will continue to do that. But by doing things collaboratively, we can accelerate that intelligence, that understanding, that learning much quicker. So what has that got to do with blockchain? You know, let's unpack some of the basics about blockchain as well. So blockchain, digital currencies, if you look at what was invented by Bitcoin originally, it was this concept of digital trust and the ability for computers to be able to reach consensus on something. And in the case of Bitcoin, it was about money. It was consensus about balances, about payments, about transactions. And that allows us to build incentive mechanisms for markets that could not really exist before. A decentralized means by which we can incentivize participation and maintenance of the network. And the Bitcoin network is by far the largest aggregation of computing power in the world, and is itself a marketplace for that computing power. So with Bitcoin, you have proof of work. And proof of work, in a nutshell, involves effectively guessing a random number that fits a particular pattern, right? It's a lottery as to who gets to fill the transactions in the next block on the network. It's what's called mining. And it solves the tiebreaker of the double spend problem when you're trying to ensure that the same amount of cash or the same transaction is not executed twice. So you need to elect a single authority per block, and that authority is responsible for the transactions in the block. So all of the miners around the world, they go about solving this puzzle, and when they solve it, the rewards go to the miner that solved that mined the block, and the rest of all of that effort is basically discarded. It's wasted. So with proof of work, the effort that is gone into, everything that's done there is a means to an end, but in and of itself has no value, right? This hashing mechanism that all of these computers around the world filling data centers, burning through vast amounts of energy are doing, does not have any value in and of itself. It's a means to an end, right? And that's why, you know, there's other blockchains as well, you know, ones that are more efficient. If you look at payment space, you've got things like the XRP ledger that are much more efficient. You look at things like Ethereum that are moving to proof of stake in order to kind of deal with that sort of thing. But what if there was a way that we could take that mechanism, that incentive, and build a blockchain marketplace where actually all of that work did have value, right? Rather than wasting it, it was actually going towards something useful. What if we could apply that same concept of decentralized, incentivized, permissioned network to machine learning? Well, that's what Bittensor is, right?
You know how Richard Hart always talks about, well, this is obviously because he's, you know, trying to pump his own bags, but always talks about the inefficiency of Bitcoin, right? So instead of losing that efficiency, right? The inefficiency is what causes the decentralization and the increase in security. That's why, like, Bitcoin's more secure than Ethereum is. Bitcoin is more decentralized than Ethereum, and it's going to be more secure and more decentralized than Pulse Chain is too, right? So what if there was another way to use this and to put it forward in a way where we could all call it? I'm super stoked about this. I don't know if you guys are, but I think this is very interesting.
Bittensor leverages the same innovation that brought us consensus, you know, on things like Bitcoin, but brings it to, you know, what we're deeming the most sort of important thing in this sort of fourth industrial age that we're going through, which is machine intelligence, right? Machine knowledge. The hash function in Bitcoin as I said, is a very concrete function. It simply finds a pattern or looks to find bytes that match a particular pattern. The consensus mechanism of Bittensor has to deal with a far more fuzzy set of outcomes. It has to deal with, actually evaluating knowledge. So if I ask everybody here in this room to take, say, a paragraph or a page of Shakespeare, for example, and summarize it down to a few sentences, everybody here would come back with probably something slightly different based upon their understanding. Now, the question being, how do we evaluate which is the best summarization of that data? How do we work out which one of...
I'm reading through their white paper. I think it's like 18 pages or something with like references and stuff. And there's like 14 pages worth of like stuff to read through on the Bittensor white paper. And there's a lot of effing math in there that, like, sometimes people will use quantitative language to explain what their crypto project is. Well, with Bittensor, it is their abstract, which is like kind of like a summary or paraphrase of their paper, is qualitative. Their paper is quantitative, heavy quantitative. To not really, like, unless you're really going through it. I'll probably have to read through it a second time to try to get a better grasp of this, but it's very interesting how they structure this to solve that problem, which Matt was just talking about.
Those participants should be rewarded and how much they should be rewarded for their effort. And that's what the consensus mechanism in Bittensor does. It looks at it's a decentralized network, and I'm going to go into that in a little bit more specifics. It's a decentralized network with each participant contributing effectively intelligence, knowledge to the network, and they're rewarded in accordance to how well they are providing that information. So in the same way that if I was to reward people here for how well they could summarize Shakespeare, then hopefully that would incentivize people to maybe go off and learn more about the Shakespeare to get a better summary and get a better reward, right? So let's just set the parameters of what we're working on at the moment within machine learning. So you can break machine learning down. There's two very dominant types of machine learning. There's supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So supervised learning is the kind of stuff you might have seen before if you've done any machine learning, in which it's categorizing, for example, data based upon that data, a training set of that data being tagged or described. So here's a whole bunch of pictures of dogs. Now go and learn what makes a picture of a dog, right? Here's a whole bunch of pictures of cats. Go away and learn that. And the idea being is that if you give the machine learning algorithm enough data, it will eventually learn what characteristics make a dog, what characteristics make a cat. And you see this in your smartphones when it automatically tags images and says, okay, those are all the images of Matt versus those are all the images of Bob or whatever it might be, right? So that's tagged data. Then the other main thing is unsupervised data, or what is sometimes called, more accurately, self-supervised data. So you give the machine learning algorithm a prompt. So the cat sat on and you ask it, what's the next token that comes back? And it comes back with Matt. Or the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy, and it predicts dog. Now, we didn't tell it what the next word is in the sentence. All we've done is given it a whole load of text and said, read through that and try and understand it so that it can come back with a prediction of what the next word is, right? And if you feed it enough data, again, the idea is that it starts to understand sentence structure. What is a verb? What is a noun? Full stops, capital letters. And then with more data, things like thematic understanding,
I've got an example of this that we're going to play in a moment. If you're new, I've been following Tesla for 10 plus years. I stopped following when I got into crypto about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. And I have a Tesla, and they are at the front of the game when it comes to AI. And I just got full self-driving, and I got a little clip of that I want to show you is how they are doing this, right? They'll use supervised data, and then they train the network, then they put it out into the system to see where it will fail in a shadow type mode. And they see, okay, it failed here, here, here. They'll grab those instances of failure, and then they will ask the neural network, the AI, the machine, to go find other instances that look similar to this. Right? This is a little bit more complex than what he's talking about here. But there's these, say, 15 instances where it fails. And it fails, say, on like left-hand turns, or when there is an obstruction in front of a tree, or a stop sign or something, right? Where it's like hard to see until the last minute of the stop sign. So it's like, okay, go find other instances. Then it will send that out around in a shadow mode to all these different cars. Like there's, I don't know, several million vehicles, Tesla vehicles on the road, and it will capture all of these instances. So now instead of having 7 instances where the Tesla failed at these specific things, now they just pulled in, 600,000 additional instances of that same exact thing happening all across the United States, Canada, Mexico, and the world for these types of data points. And then they will train their AI again. So now that it actually understands these, similar to, say, what he's talking about right here.
Understanding what are the concepts, what are the themes that are going on in that text. So in the case of Bittensor, we're just interested in unsupervised. We're looking at that bottom bit, right? We are trying to build models that understand the world around us. And specifically at the moment, we're working within the language domain. So we're working with text at the moment on that side of things. So we're building a massive decentralized neural network that's aimed at, like I said, better understanding the information in the world around us. At the moment, the current state of the industry is that it is dominated by a number of large players. Players like Meta, aka Facebook, our hosts here this evening, Microsoft, Google, Uber. They're all companies that have dedicated AI teams that are working on these big algorithms, what are sometimes referred to as foundational models. And some of them are truly amazing. I'll show you a demo of some of them, talk about them in a sec. But these kind of institutions are doing it in a very siloed way. They're seeking the computational power of say, Bitcoin, but they're doing it in the wrong substrate. They're building huge, great big centralized data centers to process this and to run their models on. What if instead of solving these machine learning problems with big centralized supercomputers, we leveraged every computer available on the internet? That's what Bitcoin showed us, right? The computing power of the Bitcoin network is greater than the top 500 supercomputers combined. So the
Did you hear that? That's incredible.
scale that we could possibly reach, the computing power available on the internet.
Listen to that again. Bitcoin is the compute power of Bitcoin is greater than the top 5 supercomputers combined, I think is what he said.
That's what Bitcoin showed us, right? The computing power of the Bitcoin network is greater than the top 500 supercomputers combined.
500 supercomputers combined. Holy, that's incredible. Wow. That's incredible. I did not know that about the compute power on Bitcoin. And now think about utilizing that towards machine learning. Yeah, holy shit, that's interesting. The amount of compute power in like a supercomputer, and he said the top 500, but like the amount of compute power in a supercomputer is like hard to grasp. For it's think of like, I don't know, 10 million of these phones power all in one, like something along those lines, to try to grasp how big something like that is. And now think about if you can get, right, it takes time to build a network that size, right? Bittensor, they started developing, I think, in 2015. I don't know when they launched their token, but I believe it was relatively recent because I've seen a lot more data come out in the last year or so, 6 to 8 months on Bittensor on this. But now imagine something where you have similar to, like, say, Helium, which is the mesh network of the world, right? Where you'll be able to buy internet on there at some point in the future, I believe, or things like this. There's one called Hive Mapper, Hive, Hive Mapper. And instead of, say, having Google owning the premier map of the planet, right? Google owns the map of the planet, so to speak, at this point. So that means if you want to use that, right, you either have to do advertising for Google in the sense that you have to still have their brand on everything, or you have to pay them a license fee, or some combination of both. Well, that's extremely cost a shitload of time and data for Google to maintain this map of the planet. Well, why not do it more in the sense of how similar to, say, Wikipedia, right? Where you can go put inputs in all around the world. All sorts of people can go through and put different inputs on there. Well, there is one. It's called Hive Mapper. And you have individuals that help contribute to the quality of the map by using 4K cameras on their car that is de-autonomized. So it's not going to pick up who you are, your location, all that kind of stuff as it gets into the network. But the people who go around who are driving and that kind of thing and have these on the car earn the Hive Mapper token, whatever it is. And now you can create a decentralized map where all of that value isn't accruing to Google. This shit's going to blow people's minds as they understand, as like more and more of this stuff comes out. Sam, that isn't even factoring in the quantum computing, which is still at least a decade away from being practical for most enterprise use. Yeah, like this next decade is going to be thought like people are like, oh, AI, right, is going to eat up jobs, which it will. Self-driving, right? I'm going to pull up a clip of my car driving itself, pulling out of my driveway, stopping the stop sign, making a left-hand turn, etc. Right? Which is incredible. Like it does it, right? And it was like, oh wow, this is pretty fucking awesome. I'm going to be taking a trip at some point in the next month or two, and I'm going to have to drive for about 10 hours. But I'm not going to drive. I'm just going to put the car into autopilot and let the car drive itself. It changes lanes, stops, goes, gets off the exits, etc. Where do I need to charge? Okay, cool. It'll take me to where I need to charge, pull into the spot so that I can start charging. All of this is done with an AI, right? And people don't understand what is taking place right now. Yes, there's going to be loads of people losing their jobs. But what happened when the automobile came out and the people who cleaned up horse shit and the people who ran the stables for horses and the people who brought the food for the horses and the people who created saddles for the horses and bridles for the horses, that's the thing that goes in the mouth, right? And the people who groomed the horses, all those people lost their jobs when the automobile came out. And I guarantee the news organizations or newsletters or whatever, the gossip, so to speak, back in the day when automobiles came out, oh my God, there's going to be so many people who lose their jobs. What are we going to do? All these people are going to lose their jobs. Well, what did the automobile do? Yes, all those people lost their jobs. But the opportunity set for new jobs, they were more creative, they were more resourceful, they were more collaborative. Because now I could take a car and go from one city to another city in an hour versus the horse and having to stop or whatever the case is. You have so much more capability for opportunities. AI and what is taking place right now with autonomous driving is going to do the same thing. It's going to open up so many doors. Like, okay, so say you have, 37 million, say you have 2 billion people that are offset their primary source of income over the course of, say, 6 or something years, right? Because it doesn't all happen like this. It's a little trickle as time as AI eats away at whatever they're doing. Well, that opportunity set for the 1 billion people that lost their jobs because of autonomous driving and AI now will evolve into something else that has a different level of skill required to it and more opportunity to earn money, more opportunity to if you think about like what are humans, they're the creative, right? We create all this stuff from this, right? So from our minds, this computer, the ability for you to see what see me right now, the ability for you to hear me is all just in somebody's mind. And they're like, I have an idea, right? And then somebody else builds on top of that idea. So there's going to be far more collaboration, far more opportunity as this stuff comes on. Let's check a couple more. It took 12 years for cars to completely replace horses. Watch what happens with EVs, right? They're already doing this. I've been saying this for years, just, so many people don't understand. EVs are eating up ICE engine vehicles. Electronic vehicles are eating up internal combustion engines like this, and people don't realize how quickly this is going to happen. By the end of this decade, you won't be able to buy an ICE engine vehicle anymore, right? And the same thing is going to happen with AI and blockchain. People don't understand what's happening. Repent your sins now. You cannot buy your soul in the afterlife. You don't get it. I don't understand what you're saying. No, that is correct. It took 65 years from the Wright brothers conducting the first flight to landing on the moon. Ross, when do we get an episode about Axon and Wise? I've actually never heard of those before. So I don't know when, because I've never heard of them before. I have to personally be curious about something to do an episode on it.
So the scale that we could possibly reach for that sort of thing would mean we'd have a lot more availability to train much larger data sets. So let's take a couple of examples from OpenAI. You might have seen people, especially say on Twitter, posting images from something called DALL-E. So DALL-E is a machine learning model it's an image generation model. You can give it a description and it will produce an image. So if you say, I want a picture of an astronaut riding a horse on the moon, it will give you an image, right? It's quite mind-blowing what it can come back with. You can describe all sorts of things and it will come back with them, right? Codex on the right is used by a product called GitHub Copilot. I don't know how many people have seen Copilot, but Copilot is a tool that uses AI to understand code. So as you are writing code, it can be pre-filling things in. So you might write a description or a comment, and it will give you the method signature. You might be able to start writing the body of the text and of the function, and it will start helping you and filling stuff in. But what's amazing is it can actually understand the semantics of the code as well. So you can say, I've written this in Python, please translate it to JavaScript. And because it actually understands the concepts behind the code, it's able to do that sort of thing. So it's able to understand, like, one language might have a construct, a while loop construct, whereas another language might not have that as a high-level construct. It might be like a for loop and then an if statement with a break in it, for example. And it can start to understand these higher-level concepts and do them as well, which is pretty cool. So the problem is, OpenAI, those examples I gave, OpenAI is a for-profit entity whose major investor and commercial partner is Microsoft. The models they're building are so large that they can't easily be distributed or run easily. The amount of computing power you would need to run these is well beyond what you'd have at home. So they're only accessible via permissioned gateway and an API. You have to apply for an account and an API key and use them in accordance with a usage policy that they make you see. So not very open. The cost to perform a single training model on something like GPT-3, which is a very advanced text transformer model that's actually used in DALL-E for the language processing, is reportedly $12 million for a single training run. So as a researcher, you're not going to make a few tweaks and kick off the CI and get a build coming out the other end, right? Or you might do. Get a very big bill turn up. So it's taking many months and many millions of dollars to train these algorithms. So as a result, models like GPT-3, they're owned by OpenAI, and they kind of keep them very close to their chest for that reason. They've invested a lot in them, and they allow access just via an API. So it's a permission system. If you want to contribute to the model itself, unless you are part of OpenAI, you can't really do that. But the speed and increase of computational power has far exceeded that of the increase in developers and researchers. So computational power is going up, so following Moore's law just about, and the complexity of these machine learning models is also going up exponentially. But the number of people involved, the researchers and developers, is not going up at nearly the same rate. So what we need to do is scale not just the technology side, we also need to be able to scale the human side of machine learning research. And that's what Bittensor is solving for. not just the technology scaling, but the scaling of the research and development, as it's a decentralized network that anyone has an equal chance to contribute to. So you're not just relying upon a set of employees at one of these large institutions or a set of researchers, but somebody sat in their bedroom on the other side of the world is also able to contribute. And they're financially rewarded for their contribution as well. You know, that's what things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, the XRP ledger, you know, gave us in terms of financial networks. What if we could do the same thing with machine learning as well? So currently we've used this incentive to scale a network up to about 300 billion parameters, which is, if anyone's involved in AI, it's a pretty large size there, and across about 3,500 nodes and growing. So like I said, currently a lot of machine learning is done in these sort of siloed models. So the model that OpenAI is generating is different to the model that Google is working on, different to the model that Microsoft is working on. And so some of the research is shared in papers and what have you, but the actual training and development of these models is not done. So to train these models, you need to feed them vast amounts of data. And that's not you know, something that they're necessarily sort of sharing in the process.
It's also extremely costly, which you touched on briefly, but didn't put enough effort into. Like, been following what Tesla's doing, and it's extremely expensive to scale this.
Of developing. So how can we make that more collaborative? Well, the idea is by using an incentive and the fact that anybody can join the network and participate, we can actually make it more scalable. So rather than what happens with typically within sort of academic research, in which it's sort of winner takes all, and you know there's a prestige and prize of getting your research done, we're going to make it a lot more equitable, and anybody can contribute to the network. So what if you could take a model like GPT-3, which again is a text natural processing model, and instead of training it from scratch, so starting with nothing and feeding it the entire internet's worth of data to learn from, you can actually build it from the previous version, say GPT-2. Or what if you take that on to the next version of GPT, or the next language model? And so we can build these collaboratively based upon other models on the network. And in that way, you know, information and kind of intelligence effectively compounds. We're learning, acting collaboratively, just very much as we're doing here in this room today, learning from each other. So we're building this big decentralized network, and it's incentivized like Bitcoin. It's peer-to-peer, anybody can contribute to. And you might have, say, 2 different machine learning models in different institutions or different companies. So you might have one of them that's being trained to learn how to detect cars, for example. And then you might have another one in another company that's learning to detect buses. Well, if you're doing image processing to detect cars and image processing to detect buses, then there's some commonality there. You know, both models are going to need to know what wheels are, what roads are. You know, a bus or a car is a particular, you know, size and shape sort of vehicle, right? It's not a cat, it's not a dog. So the idea is that these machine learning models on Bittensor can learn off of each other. So one of them might understand, okay, this is what wheels are. The other one might understand what, or start to learn, this is what roads are. And they effectively share their knowledge between each other and learn from each other, rather than necessarily having to train from scratch.
Whoops. Now, so this is actually a good point to share. This is where he's talking about cars and AI. This is Tesla's. I just got this update today for the autopilot, right? Full self-driving. So we're going to, hopefully you guys can hear this, but I think I was narrating as we go along. This is the what the car is seeing, and the update from the previous version was, this is a massive update. So like, it didn't have any color on here, and the details in the vehicles and the things on the side of the road were completely different. It's far better now. So this is 38 seconds. Now we're coming up to this stop sign here, and we're going to see how this does, because there's a cop there standing by the side of the road. So I got to keep my camera down. Let's see how this performs. Looks pretty high. Oh, okay. Is that better? There's also cones in the road. Let's see. So there's somebody at the corner over there. Now it's going. You can see him say here. Wow, that was quick and pretty impressive. Yeah, that's pretty. Oh. The car was just driving itself. It came to the stop sign. There was a car in front of me. Once that car went, it pulled up. Another car was there, and it went through that, made a left-hand turn. And it's, if you look at this part of the video right here, you get to see that there is this little speck here. That's a cop. That's his truck right there. And that's a cop sitting there watching as it goes through this. This stuff is available today, and people don't realize what is happening right now. That's why I keep talking about it. But let's get back into mass conversation.
Same way that, if I got everybody in this room and asked you to, instead of just studying Shakespeare, you actually studied different texts, and you all came back together and said, well, this is what I learned about this, and this is what I learned about this one. And we share it rather than each having to go off and learn from scratch. And not only that, we end up increasing the diversity of the data, which makes these models more robust, right? So even if people are running the same model, they might train it with different training data. And back to our example of dogs, you might only have trained it on a certain number of dogs, and somebody in another part of the world has a different breed of dog, and it goes, I've got no idea what that is, right? So, but they might have trained it on that as well. So your model might now know what that dog is because their model has learned it. And that's going to make all of the models more robust and be able to, there's a certain number of kind of attacks and vulnerabilities that neural networks are subject to, and this can actually make them a lot more robust as a result of that. And value flows directly to the creators. It's much more democratic. So rather than just employing or going to researchers within these large institutions, anybody could contribute, anybody can be rewarded. And there's a green aspect to this as well, that in sharing the knowledge, you don't have to retrain completely from scratch, right? So you can take an existing model and build up from then. We've heard the phrase standing on the shoulders of giants. And in the case of open source software development, it's a very common thing. We're used to taking libraries that other people have built. We're used to, forking something or contributing to it or working with it. And so let's take the same approach. What if we could build neural networks in the same way that we build open source software and all learn from each other? So how does this work in a practical sense with Bittensor? So there's 3 different entities on the network. You've got clients, validators, and miners. So if I start from the right-hand side of the slides there, the miners are the ones that actually run the neural network models locally. They produce the representational knowledge. They're the ones that actually learn from the data and learn how to understand what that data actually represents. They're understanding the sentence structure, the grammar, what is a noun, what is a verb, etc. And they're building that representational, understanding of it. You have validators. So the validators are curating the knowledge. They're the ones that are actually, they send the queries to the miner.
So I'm just going to read some of this text because I think this is interesting if you're watching and it's hard to read. So clients here, right? Then after that, it has some small text here. Clients consume knowledge with TAO. AI companies want best in class. We provide them with the most extensive corpus of hosted machine knowledge. Corpus is like the base of that. If you think of like a trust, if I were a grantor to a trust, that means I started a trust and I put assets into a trust. The initial amount that I put into the trust is called a corpus, right? So that's like the body of data, so to speak, or you can think about this is the interesting part. Bittensor models have achieved 80% performance on state-of-the-art models like ChatGPT-3 with 5% of the size. Ooh, wow, that's fucking interesting. And this should, I don't know. I'm fucking excited about this.
Miners process and the miners send their understanding of the, back. And it's the validators that try and establish who has the best understanding of this information. And then it determines through the consensus mechanism, the validators determine who gets rewarded and how much they get rewarded. So the idea being that the miners that produce the best knowledge and the best understanding get rewarded the most, right? And it uses we've got an internal currency called TAO, and currently Bittensor is a blockchain built on Substrate, which is part of Polkadot, and it's a solo chain at the moment, but one of the things we're working towards is actually joining as what's called a parachain onto the main network, and that will allow the token to flow on and off the network and to things like decentralized exchanges. The tokenomics of the network of TAO actually follows the same as Bitcoin. There's 21 million TAO total. There's a halving every 4 years, the same kind of model as Bitcoin. So, as a lone researcher, like I said, at the moment, you can't really contribute to some of these state-of-the-art models, right? And there's no incentive really to do so as well. It's very difficult for you to get your changes accepted or published. But with Bittensor, anybody can do, and they can get rewarded for doing that. And the clients, the final one, the clients are the entities that actually are querying the network, right? They're consuming the knowledge. So they're able to pay for that using TAO. So instead of having to go through a permissioned gateway like you have to do with something like DALI or GPT-3, you can actually go directly to the network. You can run a node yourself and supply a small amount of TAO or contact an existing running node and go via them. But that's the bit that's kind of bringing Web3 to AI. It's the decentralized, permissionless aspect of it. Means anybody can not only contribute, but anybody can query and use the network.
On Polygon.
So a little bit of an example here. So this is going to be a screencast of a Python notebook running and querying a machine learning model. So if I
see if I can increase the quality of this.
There we go. So we're importing the Bittensor libraries, and we're syncing what's called the metagraph. We're connecting to our testnet, which is called Nobunaga, and you can see it synchronizes with the network. We then, the next line down below, create a wallet. I've got a test wallet that I'm just using here. We select the network. So this one's 55, which is a model from an entity called Eleuther. And we are, let's go quite fast here. We're sending a sentence. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy. It sends it to the network, and we get it back. We can run it through the tokenizer to get the results back, and we get the prediction dog, right?
So like this is fucking nerdy shit, right? Like I don't have any fucking clue what he's talking about at this point when he's talking about, Python's a coding language, right? Do I understand what this, goobly gap shit on the screen is? No, but I understand that you can use Python or other coding languages to make a user interface that I can interact with, you can interact with in a way that makes sense to the end consumer, and having the blockchain behind this, right, could be very, very interesting, right? Because imagine a thing like Google, right? Google search, or something like, I think we're gonna have to do this in a 2-part video, guys. Because there's other stuff I wanted to cover on this, but we're gonna run out of time. But imagine having something like YouTube or Google or ChatGPT. If you're not familiar with ChatGPT, it's fucking awesome, right? But instead of them getting all the value and thing, if you wanted to watch, just let's use YouTube, because people are probably watching this on YouTube and can grasp this analogy very easily. You go to youtube.com and you connect your wallet, right? And you have TAO in there, and you spend some TAO to interact with the network as the client, as Matt was just describing, where now you are querying the network, and there's nodes on the network, and then there's also people who are researching on the network and trying to contribute knowledge, right? So if you're contributing knowledge to the network, you're getting paid. I believe you can also earn with actually running like the miner for the network, or like the node for the network, and users providing like a service, right? There's all these like token chain fucking shit out there where they're like, oh yeah, we've got good tokenomics. You need to provide something that's valuable. And you're just trying to gain adoption by growing the network with better marketing. But what if there was something actually unique that provided a value or service, right? And something like that allows people to use the best in the world AI. Remember, when I say AI, think of tool, right? So now imagine people in the world being able to use the best AI, the best tool, because you can use Google to, as we talked about, look up the tiniest nuanced details of the human brain and how that works, whether it's, you're using a database for research papers to look up, or you're using YouTube or just using Google, right? But you can also use this same AI to look up how to change your tire, right? So these are just tools that can be utilized in fuckloads of different ways, right? That's a technical term if you've never heard of it. And that just means a lot, right? Fuckloads is just a lot of data, a lot of different ways to use this. So how this is going to be implemented, 2023, you're going to see and into 2024 and going forward, so many more use cases for AI that it's just going to blow people's minds who are not I spend every day being on the internet. Every day I'm on the internet, for hours and hours, right? And so you see shit that other people don't see, just like if whatever you do for a job or to earn income, you see shit that other people will never see, and you build an intuition that other people will never be able to grasp, right? And through that, you get to understand the nuances of what's coming next and how things are changing, right? And this is going to be massively impactful to the world. I'm already using AI in my business, multiple AIs in my business, and I'm not referencing Google or YouTube, right? Specific AI tools to help me make more money in my businesses already in 2023. But these things you can utilize in all sorts of different businesses. Again, just like you can use Google to learn how to change your tire, you can also use Google how to do brain surgery, right? You can do this tool is versatile in many different ways. So you can use these AIs for all sorts of different stuff. How are the tokenomics of TAO going to play out? I'm not sure. How is this going to perform in the future? I'm not sure. But I do know that paying attention to this kind of stuff as we move forward, I'll be able to see this kind of shit before the people are, because I'm just paying attention to it faster. Let's get into a couple more comments here, and then go on to. I think I'm gonna do a second episode on this tomorrow. So Hex Farmer, what's Gucci, bro? SR, bro, can we change the name of the show to Sam Soul Show? Hey, I would like to do my own show at some point. Got to figure out a consistent way to do that or something like that, because I tweeted out the other day, I haven't found anybody in crypto that I consistently enjoy listening to, because they're not talking about the shit that I enjoy talking about, right? So I think in order to, and I believe there's other people out there who would find the shit that I find interesting to listen to and or talk about as well. I learning about new shit all the time and trying to really dive deep into understanding things. So I think that I don't know how I'm going to structure this, but I would like to do something as a podcast that's launched on my channel, and or something where we dive into these topics in more detail, because I would get value from it. And maybe there's not a giant audience to that, or maybe there is an audience to them. But I think that I will have something like that in the future. Hexile, back to more brain expansion. Yes. Looking good. I appreciate you, Bigfoot. Hope you're doing amazing. My NFT game is flying thanks to AI. That is awesome. Oh, let's just do one more quick. I pulled this up so I can show everybody. You guys can see this. I don't know if they've probably heard about Dolly, but they haven't played with it yet, potentially. So this is this is a tool I've used many times. I wrote in here, monster in 3D sitting in a dark alley with let's say light explosions. Let's say purple light explosions. And let's see what comes out with here, and then we'll wrap the show up here. So this is an AI by OpenAI. It's going through and it's using the text that I put in there to generate an image, right? It's going to generate 4 different images or variations of this. And this is not it, but this was generated with AI. And it will show us what this actually takes a look, what it looks like. You can use this stuff for your business, which I use these for Facebook posts and other things. You can also use this to, okay, this is cool. Check this out. Kind of creepy, kind of cool, right? What is this? Like a monster. It's got the alleyway, right? This is all generated by AI, guys. Look at this one. This looks like the teddy bear creepy one, right? Monster with a purple background. And I don't know what he's doing, but the light shining down on top of him, right? Oh, this one's kind of cool. This reminds me of like Japan or something like that, right? It looks like there's some dude in the background or something, and you got this creepy monster like sitting on the ground or something. This is generated with AI. It's not taking other pictures or anything. It's using the text that I've input to create this. Now, this one's nice. This is a nice one too. This is using the text that I put in to create this image. This is incredible, guys. This is today. This is just today. In the future, this stuff is going to be 1,000 times greater than this. The capability of what this is, what you can do with this is absolutely astonishing. I was using this yesterday to create a fish, I think it was, right? I had to do this yesterday because I was using DALL-E 2 for something else. You can use, and as you just heard me say, I use AI for different types of things. I think I wanted a water painting or something like this, right? The fish is what I wanted, right? This stuff is absolutely incredible. Like the capabilities, what you're able to do with is only limited by your resourcefulness and your creativity. I hope you guys like the show. We're going to do part 2 tomorrow on Bittensor. Jump over to Instagram, link down below. Should be linked down below. Or Twitter, say what's good. If you do try to reach out, you definitely have a higher chance of getting through if you reach out on Instagram over Twitter. Appreciate you guys. And let's do the DVAC proof to take us out of here. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's show.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stay. Got me some heads on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that just in case. Gym ready, send me to show you the way.